The needle slipped. Blood beaded on Mira's fingertip, but she didn't stop. 3 hours until the Aurora Hall showcase, and the hem on the final gown still wasn't right. Her hands trembled as she threaded the needle again, the weight of everything pressing down on her shoulders like stones. "Mira, they're loading the van in 20 minutes, called Eva, the studio assistant, from the doorway. "I know," Mira whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the sewing machine. This moment had taken 2 years to arrive. 2 years since she'd stepped off that crowded bus into Lunara City with nothing but a worn sketchbook and $300 to her name. She could still remember the smell of diesel and street food mixing in the dawn air, the way the city's glass towers seemed to pierce the sky, indifferent to her dreams. That first morning, standing on the corner of 5th and Merchant Street, Mira had felt so small. The city moved around her in fast currents, people in sharp suits and designer clothes rushing past without seeing her at all. She'd clutched her sketchbook tighter, the one her grandmother had given her before she died, and whispered a promise to herself. "I didn't come this far to disappear." The room she'd rented in Stonebridge Quarter was barely larger than a closet. Peeling wallpaper, a window that wouldn't fully close, a hot plate that worked only half the time. She'd sat on the thin mattress that first night, counting her remaining money. $240. Rent was due again in 3 weeks. Talent wasn't enough. That truth hit her harder than the cramped room or the empty stomach. The city didn't care about dreams drawn in sketchbooks. It cared about work, about proof, about something tangible. Mira had found the tailoring studio on her 5th day of searching. Threadwork and Company, tucked between a bakery and a print shop in the heart of Stonebridge Quarter. The owner, Mrs. Chun, was a stern woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to measure everything twice. "Can you sew?" Mrs. Chun had asked, not looking up from the garment she was pinning. "Yes." "Can you follow instructions without talking back?" "Yes." "Can you start tomorrow at 6 in the morning?" Mira's heart had leaped. "Yes. Thank you. I won't let you down." Mrs. Chun had finally looked up then, her expression unreadable. "We'll see." The work was grueling. Mira arrived before dawn and left long after the sun set. She organized bolts of fabric by color and weight, swept floors, ran errands across the district, and made endless cups of tea for clients. Her hands, once soft from small-town life, grew rough and calloused. Her back ached from hunching over cutting tables. But at night, in her tiny room, she sketched. Even when exhaustion blurred her vision, even when her fingers cramped around the pencil, she drew. Gowns with flowing silhouettes, dresses with intricate beadwork, coats with unexpected structural elements. The designs poured out of her like prayers. 6 months into the job, Mrs. Chun began giving her real tasks. First, simple hemming work. Then taking in seams. Then, finally, constructing entire garments from patterns. Mira studied every stitch, every technique. She watched how Mrs. Chun selected fabrics, how she draped material on the dress form to find the perfect fall, how she built structure into delicate pieces. "Why do you stay so late?" Mrs. Chun asked one evening, finding Mira still at the work table at 9 o'clock. Mira looked up from the sleeve she was setting. "I want to learn everything." Mrs. Chun's expression softened, just slightly. "Then pay attention. Fabric has a language. You have to listen to it." Mira learned to listen. She learned that silk whispered and demanded gentle hands, that wool was forgiving and strong, that organza was temperamental and beautiful. She learned that a 1/4 inch could mean the difference between elegant and sloppy, that patience was a skill as important as any technique. The market trips became her favorite part of the week. Stonebridge Quarter's fabric market was a sensory explosion, colors stacked in towering rolls, textures ranging from rough burlap to butter-soft cashmere, vendors calling out deals in a dozen languages. Mira learned to spot quality, to negotiate prices, to find beauty in unexpected places. She made mistakes. A seam she'd sewn puckered badly and had to be redone 3 times. A delicate lace she'd been entrusted with tore under her nervous hands. A client's dress came back with a complaint about the fit. Each failure stung, but Mrs. Chin's words kept her going. Mistakes are expensive teachers, but they're thorough. 14 months after starting at Threadwork and Company, something shifted. Mira had been working on a wedding gown, a complex design with layers of tulle and hand-sewn beading. Mrs. Chun had been ill that week, trusting Mira to complete the piece alone. When the bride came for her final fitting, she'd gasped. "It's perfect." The woman had breathed, tears shining in her eyes. "It's more than I imagined." Mrs. Chun, recovered and standing in the doorway, had caught Mira's eye and nodded once. That single nod meant more than any praise. A month later, Mrs. Chun had found Mira's sketchbook. Mira had left it open on the work table during lunch, a careless mistake she immediately regretted when she returned to find her employer studying the pages. "These are yours?" Mrs. Chun asked. Mira's throat went dry. "Yes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. They're good." Mrs. Chun turned another page, her finger tracing the lines of an evening gown design. "Raw but good. You see things differently." "Thank you," Mira managed. Mrs. Chun closed the sketchbook carefully and handed it back. "There's a regional showcase coming up. The Aurora Hall event. They're looking for emerging designers." Mira's pulse quickened. "I've heard of it. You should enter." The words hung in the air between them, too large and too frightening to fully grasp. "I can't afford the entry fee," Mira said quietly, reality crushing hope before it could fully form. Mrs. Chun crossed her arms. "The fee is waived for studio-sponsored designers. I'll sponsor you, but you'll need to create 3 pieces. Original designs. You'll have 6 weeks." Mira felt the world tilt. "Mrs. Chun, I don't know what to say. Say you'll work harder than you've ever worked. Say you'll make me proud of taking this risk." Mrs. Chun's voice was sharp, but her eyes held something warm. "And say you'll stop doubting yourself. Doubt is expensive, Mira. We don't have budget for it." That night, Mira didn't sleep. She spread her sketches across the floor of her small room, studying each design with new eyes. 3 pieces. They had to tell a story. They had to prove she belonged in this city, in this industry, in this dream she'd carried so far from home. She chose her designs by dawn. A structured coat in midnight blue with silver threading, representing the arrival and the cold unknowing of new beginnings. A flowing gown in champagne silk with hand-beaded constellations, representing the dreams that kept her going through dark times. And a final piece, a dress in deep crimson with architectural elements, representing the strength forged through struggle. The 6 weeks blurred together. Mira worked at the studio during the day and on her collection every night. She bought fabric with money saved from skipping meals. She spent hours at the market, finding the perfect shade of blue, negotiating for beads she could barely afford, trading tasks with other vendors for materials. "You're not eating enough," Eva observed one afternoon, watching Mira sway slightly at the cutting table. "I'm fine." "You're not." "Here." Eva pushed a container of rice and vegetables across the table. "My mother always makes too much." "Don't argue." Mira's eyes stung with unexpected tears. "Thank you." Kindness, she was learning, was its own form of currency in this city. 3 weeks before the showcase, disaster struck. The champagne silk for her second gown arrived with a flaw, a visible line running through 2 yards of fabric. Mira stared at it in her tiny room, hands shaking. She didn't have money for replacement fabric. The vendor refused to exchange it. She sat on her floor and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she stood up, dried her face, and studied the flaw. If she couldn't hide it, maybe she could incorporate it. She adjusted her design, using the line as an intentional element, adding strategic beading to transform the flaw into a feature. "Problems are just design opportunities in disguise," she muttered, channeling Mrs. Chen's philosophy. 2 weeks before the showcase, Mira hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in 10 days. Her fingers were raw from needle pricks, her eyes burned from close work in dim light, and her back felt permanently curved. The coat was finished. The champagne gown was nearly complete. But the crimson dress refused to cooperate. The architectural elements she'd envisioned looked clumsy in execution. The structure wouldn't hold. "It's not working," she told Mrs. Chun, voice cracking with exhaustion and frustration. Mrs. Chun examined the dress form. "You're forcing it. The fabric is fighting you because you're not listening. Take a break. Come back with fresh eyes." "I don't have time for breaks." "You don't have time for mistakes either." Mrs. Chin's voice was firm. "Go home. Sleep. Really sleep. The work will be here tomorrow." Mira slept for 12 hours and woke with clarity. She'd been trying to impose her will on the fabric instead of working with its natural properties. She adjusted the internal structure, changed the way she'd planned to construct the bodice, and suddenly everything fell into place. 1 week before the showcase, Mira completed the final stitch on the crimson dress at 2 in the morning. She stood back, looking at all 3 pieces hanging in her room, and felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. Pride. These were good. They were really good. But pride quickly gave way to terror. In 7 days, her work would be displayed at Aurora Hall, the most prestigious venue in Stonebridge Quarter. Fashion critics would be there. Established designers. Buyers. People who could make or break a career with a single dismissive comment. What if they hate it? Mira asked Eva over lunch the next day. What if they love it? Eva countered. You've been preparing for this your whole life, Mira. Trust yourself. The night before the showcase, Mira couldn't eat. She packed and repacked her garment bags, checking each piece obsessively for loose threads or imperfect seams. Mrs. Chin found her in the studio at midnight. Go home, Mira. I just need to check. You need to rest. You need to walk into Aurora Hall tomorrow looking like a designer, not a ghost. Mrs. Chin's hand on her shoulder was unexpectedly gentle. I've been in this business for 40 years. I know quality when I see it. Your work is ready. The question is, are you? Mira met her eyes. I'm terrified. Good. Terror means you care. Just don't let it paralyze you. Mrs. Chun smiled. A rare and beautiful thing. I didn't sponsor you because I felt sorry for you. I sponsored you because you remind me of myself at your age. Hungry. Determined. Talented. Don't waste this opportunity second-guessing yourself. Now, standing in the studio with 3 hours until showtime, Mira finished the final hem. She sucked the blood from her pricked finger and held the gown up to the light. Perfect. It was finally perfect. Van's leaving in 10 minutes. Eva called again, more urgently. Mira carefully zipped each garment into its protective bag. Her hands had stopped trembling. A strange calm settled over her as she carried her collection out to the waiting van. 2 years of struggle, of learning, of doubt and determination, all contained in 3 garment bags. The drive to Aurora Hall took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Mira watched Lunara City slide past the window, the same city that had felt so overwhelming and foreign 2 years ago. It still intimidated her, still moved too fast, but now she understood its rhythm. Now she had a place in it. Aurora Hall rose before them, all glass and elegant architecture. Models and designers crowded the backstage entrance, everyone moving with urgent purpose. Mira followed Eva through the chaos, clutching her garment bags like lifelines. The backstage area was controlled madness. Makeup artists worked on models, steamers hissed, designers barked instructions, and the air smelled of hairspray and expensive perfume. Mira found her assigned station, a small rack with her name on a placard. Mira Vale. Seeing it printed there made everything suddenly, terrifyingly real. You have 90 minutes until showtime, a coordinator announced, clipboard in hand. Models will be assigned in 60 minutes. Make sure your pieces are steamed and ready. Myra's hands shook as she unzipped the first garment bag. The midnight blue coat emerged, silver threading catching the harsh backstage lights. She ran her fingers along the seams, checking everything one final time. That's stunning, a voice said beside her. Mira turned to find another designer, a woman perhaps 10 years older with perfectly styled hair and an air of confidence Mira couldn't imagine possessing. Thank you, Mira managed. First showcase? The woman asked. Is it that obvious? The woman laughed kindly. You have that look. Like you might throw up or pass out or both. I'm Celeste, by the way. This is my 4th year showing here. Mira. And yes, I might actually throw up. Don't. It's bad luck, and the cleaning crew hates it. Celeste winked. Breathe. Your work is beautiful. Trust it. The next hour passed in a blur. Models were assigned, 3 tall, elegant women who would wear Mira's designs down the runway. She helped them into each piece, adjusting fits, securing clasps, making sure everything moved correctly. The coat fit the first model perfectly. The champagne gown with its beaded constellations made the second model gasp when she saw herself in the mirror. This is incredible, the model said, turning to watch the fabric catch light. Who designed this? I did, Mira said, and felt a surge of something fierce and proud in her chest. The crimson dress, her final piece, transformed the third model into something powerful and elegant. The architectural elements Mira had struggled with now seemed inevitable. as if the dress could have been constructed no other way. 30 minutes, the coordinator called out. Mira's stomach clenched. She could hear the audience gathering in the hall beyond the curtain, voices rising and falling like waves. Somewhere out there, Mrs. Chun was sitting in the audience. Eva had taken the afternoon off to attend. People who believed in her were watching. People who could change her life were watching. Places, someone shouted. The lights in the hall dimmed. Music began, something elegant and pulsing. The first designer's models walked out to applause. Then the second designer. Each collection received polite clapping, occasional murmurs of appreciation. Then it was Mira's turn. Her first model stepped onto the runway wearing the midnight blue coat. The silver threading caught the spotlights, making it shimmer like starlight. The audience went quiet. Not the polite quiet of before, but something deeper. Mira watched from the wings, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. The applause started, building as the model reached the end of the runway. Mira heard someone in the audience say, "Exquisite construction." Her second model walked out in the champagne gown. The beaded constellations sparkled with each step, the fabric flowing like liquid light. The applause grew louder. Mira saw fashion critics leaning forward in their seats, saw people pulling out phones to photograph her work. Then the crimson dress. Her final model stepped into the spotlight, and the audience erupted. The architectural elements that had caused Mira so much struggle now looked bold and innovative. The deep red was striking under the lights, commanding attention without screaming for it. Mira's legs felt weak. Eva appeared beside her, gripping her arm. "They love it," Eva whispered fiercely. "Mira, they love it." The three models completed their walk and exited. Mira could barely breathe. The show continued with other designers, but she couldn't focus on anything except the pounding of her heart and the echo of that applause. After the final collection, the host returned to the stage. "We have a special recognition tonight," he announced. "Our judges have selected one emerging designer whose work demonstrated exceptional artistry and innovation. This designer's collection told a story of transformation, of beauty found through perseverance." Mira's hands went numb. "Mira Vale, please join us on stage." Time fractured. Eva pushed her forward. Somehow Mira's legs carried her through the curtain and into the blinding spotlights. The audience rose to their feet, applause washing over her like a physical force. She saw Mrs. Chun in the third row, tears streaming down her usually stern face. She saw critics nodding, saw buyers exchanging interested glances, saw people she'd never met celebrating her work. The host handed her a crystal award. "Congratulations, Miss Vale. Tell us, what does this moment mean to you?" Mira looked out at the sea of faces. 2 years ago, she'd stepped off a bus with nothing but hope and $300. She'd scrubbed floors and pricked her fingers and cried in a tiny room and wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. She'd learned to listen to fabric, to trust her vision, to keep going when everything felt impossible. "It means," she said, her voice stronger than she expected, "that dreams don't happen overnight. They happen in small moments of choice. In deciding to try again after failure. In accepting help when it's offered. In believing you deserve a seat at the table even when everything tells you otherwise." The applause thundered again. Mira let herself feel it, really feel it. This moment she'd worked so hard to reach. Backstage afterward, designers and buyers crowded around her. Business cards pressed into her hands, requests for meetings, compliments that felt surreal. Mrs. Chun found her in the chaos and simply pulled her into a tight hug. "I knew," Mrs. Chun said. "I knew you had this in you." That night, alone in her tiny room, Mira set the crystal award on her windowsill where the morning light would hit it. She opened her sketchbook, the same worn one she'd carried to Lunara City 2 years ago, and started drawing. New designs, bolder ideas, the future expanding before her like an unfurling bolt of fabric. If you're watching this and you have a dream that feels impossible, remember Mira's story. Success isn't about talent alone. It's about showing up every day, learning from failure, accepting help, and refusing to quit when things get hard. Your moment is coming, but only if you keep working toward it. If this story inspired you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share stories like Mira's to remind you that your dreams are worth fighting for. Drop a comment below and tell us about your own journey. What dream are you working toward? What keeps you going when things get difficult? Your story matters, and we'd love to hear it. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another inspiring story. Your moment is closer than you think.